Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning.
Hi, hello there.
Hello, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Fantastic.
Really well, thank you.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got two amazing ladies on the show today. I'm so excited. So if I'm sounding so excited, do bear with me. It's not my fault because I got two queens with me this evening on Double9Radio. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having us. And thank you for that amazing introduction.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Fantastic. Okay, let's just start with this before my excitement goes all the way to a top-notch level. Can we just say, tell us who's on the show today? So who wants to go first?
Hoda, you go first. So, hello. I am Hoda Ali. I'm the co-founder of Vavengers. And Mabel?
Hey, I'm Mabel. I'm co-founder of the Vavengers with Hoda.
Fantastic. Ladies, welcome to the show. I'm trying not to be shy again because I've got two ladies, two queens on the show. But I will try to bring my confident side out this evening so I can get as much information as I can possibly get this evening. Again, thank you for coming on the show. It's a pleasure to have you both on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think we're all going to be learning together. And thank you for your audience. I think that today we're going to be international and national. So
yes.
Very excited.
Yes, I must say, I've been getting DMs, I've been getting WhatsApp messages saying that, wow, this is going to be a very deep interview. I want to learn. I want to know what, I want to know what this is about. So I think, I have a lot of attentive listeners, globally listen to us this evening, which is quite great. I'm hoping to get a lot of interaction as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, you remember the number anyway. The number is 074 956 36899. You can call it live into the studio or send us a text or call us via WhatsApp as well or send a WhatsApp message. Okay, so let's start with Mabel. Mabel,
yes.
Tell me, if everyone's going to say who's Mabel, what would you say to them?
I would say a defender of vaginas, first and foremost. And
Okay.
Someone who's passionate about human rights, women's rights, and how we can just ensure that all of us have a life that is not taken because of our gender.
Okay, fantastic. And Hoda, what would you say? Hoda, we still...
Hoda?
Yes, Hoda.
Oh, hello. I didn't hear that. Oh, is that me now?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. I'm so sorry, everybody, because I hope everybody's safe, by the way. But to be having this new technology and virtual talk and stuff, it's something we're all learning to each other. So
yeah.
Bear with me. So who is Hoda? Hoda Ali is a woman, a 42-year-old woman, just trying to navigate life from Africa. I was born in Somalia and came to Europe, just navigating through life and surviving and trying to give back. That's who I am.
Fantastic. I mean, I love how you both describe yourself there. I mean, the most common thing is that giving back. Mabel mentioned the defender of the V word, the vagina. I think I can say that. She's the defender of the vagina, and also she mentioned that she likes to give back and also ensure there's gender equality. And likewise, Hoda as well, giving back to the society is the watchword this evening. Okay, Hoda, what inspires you? Hoda.
What inspired me? I mean, I get inspired every single day, but I was one of those really, really lucky girls because I went through female genital mutilation when I was 7 years old back home in Somalia.
Wow.
And by the time I was 8, the civil war happened, and I ended up being in a refugee camp, and I ended up in Europe when I was 17 years old, is still going through the medical complications that was arise from FGM. And once I came to Europe, me and my dad, we couldn't go back home. And I ended up being in a refugee camp and ended up being in London at the age of 20, just before I turned 21. And just my life was I didn't choose it, but it was kind of the experiences I have from FGM, from Civil War, being in refugee camp, really inspired me, because I'm very lucky to be here talking to you all today.
Amazing.
And I thought, because I'm here and lucky and alive,
Yes,
I should give back.
yes, amazing. I'm sure we'll get into more of what you just mentioned as well, which is a very inspiring story. But Mabel, what would you say inspires you?
I mean, Hoda inspires me.
Wow.
Hoda.
I'm inspired by both of you this evening. But carry on.
Yeah, Hoda, Layla Hussein, Sari and Tamara, all of these remarkable women who have just turned their pain into such strength in order to help other women. I think it's one of the most admirable things you can do, is stop the cycle of violence. And that's exactly what these women have done. So they inspire me.
Wow, amazing. I mean, Hoda mentioned recently, not just now, just a minute ago, about FGM. But, Mabel, could you tell us what is FGM for those who are not aware of what this is?
Sure. So FGM stands for female genital mutilation, and it involves total or partial removal of the female external genitalia. It's often done under really poor sanitary conditions, no anesthetic. It's done to remove, type 1 is removing the woman's clitoris, type 2 is removing the clitoris and labia, and type 3 is removing the clitoris, labia, and sewing the woman up. And
wow.
Really it's just a tool to control a woman, oppress a woman. Hoda, anything to add to that?
I really want people to know, because when we hear about female genital mutilation, first of all, the language that we are using, when we say female genital mutilation, we speak in English, and the law and where we are is what it is. Every single different countries that practice around the world call it different things. So we need to really always think about the terminologies, because not everybody understands what FGM is.
Yeah.
And there is 4 types of FGM. There is type 1, and sometimes is type 1 is actually removing of the clitoris, a partial removal, a little bit of removal of the clitoris. And then there's type 2, sometimes total removal of the clitoris, labia minora, labia majora. Type 3 is total removal of the clitoris, labia minora, labia majora, and they pull the skin together, and they actually stitch girls up until they have a little hole, no more than bigger than matchstick, and they expect girls to pass their urine and to when they get to period, to have their period, and when they get married, actually their man to open them up, because a lot of the practicing community don't take girls to be reopened. That is part of the culture. And type 4 is anything to do with a female genitalia without medical reasons. So stretching, piercing, anything like that is there. So we just need to remember our terminology.
Yeah.
Terminology is very, very important.
It is important. I mean, the way it was described there, I'm struggling not to even visualize it, because, when you mention that the gap is much more bigger than a matchstick, how does that individual pass a urine? It's going to be a bit difficult to do that. But I understand you guys, founded the organization Vavengers. Can you tell us more about Vavengers?
Mabel, you start.
Oh God, Hoda, you speak so much better than I do.
Okay, I'm going to start off how we met, right?
Yes, let's start off how you fantastic ladies met. Actually, good. That's a good point.
Yeah, so this is the way me and Mabel met is how the Vavengers came about. And anybody who knows the Vavengers or worked with us or came one of our events will really know that how we met, and our hearts is, we wear our hearts in our sleeves. And please, if we don't explain enough of the Vavengers, please go to our website. Everything is there. We met, so I'm a nurse and I worked in Ealing Hospital for a very long time. And I remember and somebody, actually one of the midwives downstairs in the hospital contacted me and said, we need to go and talk to these young people. The young people we end up talking to was Mabel and her class, and Mabel will talk about where she was when I came to talk to them. And so we went there and we spoke to the teacher, and we did this in workshop for the young people, including Mabel. And one thing I remember that because it always stayed with my heart was I was cut when I was in Somalia. I was born in Somaliland, in Hargeisa. And, you know, they had a billboard that was saying, you know, it didn't say like FGM is wrong, but it said FGM can affect women's health. And then there was another billboard in Uganda. So what I did, part of my workshop, my PowerPoints, was I showed these two PowerPoints and two billboard. And I said, yes, Africa, you know, 28 countries in Africa alone practice FGM. And we have billboards in Africa that is actually talking about what FGM is. But we don't have anything like that in Europe, let alone in London. And that is how the Vavengers is started. I'm going to get Mabel to talk about the rest.
Okay, go on, Mabel. We want to hear the other side of this exciting story. Go on, we're listening.
Yeah. So Hoda and I met, and we were talking, and Hoda mentioned that she really wanted to get this UK billboard against FGM with a helpline. So we formed the Vavengers initially as a one-off to hold a charity event to get the money to get this billboard around. So we succeeded in doing so. We had a really wonderful evening. And then I began talking to more people in my community, a non-practicing community, about FGM. And the silence and the inability to talk about it was so shocking. And Hoda and I were talking about how can we create a space in which people in non-practicing and practicing communities can come in and actually ask questions, and the dialogue can be open, because a lot of what allows this practice to continue is the silence, because nobody is willing to talk about it. And we started putting on these events with musicians and poets, and we were engaging our networks between us, and we were just raising money for frontline survivors and organizations that were directly helping women, because unfortunately they're incredibly underfunded, and they still are. So beyond that, we then went to doing some community work where we'd work with community ambassadors who were already running projects and looking at how we could support them. We got our charity registration last year, and now we are focusing on a campaign lobbying the Department for Health in the UK to basically ensure that survivors of FGM who turn up at NHS services aren't slipping through the cracks, aren't being forgotten, and aren't having any form of secondary trauma occur because our NHS staff aren't trained. Okay. So we've gone through a lot of evolution, but between it all, it's just really important to us that we celebrate the strength of women and recognize them as survivors and heroes and not as victims. And we just want to, be an organization that's, inspiring and moving and looking forward, not backwards.
Fantastic. But I mean, that's a great story of how you guys met. You know, we've met now, so I'm your friend as well. So we're all friends. So it's all good as well. So I mean, there's one thing I wanted to ask. You know, the Vavengers. Why did you call it that? You know, I love the name though. But how did that name come about?
I don't even remember. Do you remember?
I think a lot of our meetings was involved about, vaginas and FGM and how can we actually being a woman. But Mabel, come on. How was it for you, Dalia?
I think it was a teacher at the school who was teaching us about FGM at the time. She was involved in the early stages. Yeah. And I think she was saying, the Vagina Avengers. I guess it's like a word task force.
Yeah.
Okay. But if I could just add to that as well, one of the reasons we really, really need to think about this, that violence against women and girls is something that happens every single minute. Every 10 seconds, women gets, violated somewhere around the world. Yes. And when we were talking about it, we were talking about female genital mutilation, and it wasn't something that was talked about, it's something that is always talked about behind closed doors. So in a way, we really wanted to let people know that we are talking about violence against women, and we are talking about FGM, and yes, we are the Vavengers, which is the Vagina Avengers. So we kind of wanted to shock people, but really be clear of we're not shying away a human anatomy, because it's just normal to talk about sexual and, talk about my vagina.
I mean, you can never forget the name Vavengers. It sticks to you, all the while. Okay, now let's get into a bit more about FGM. You know, you mentioned a story about yourself recently, which you're a survivor of FGM. But you know, there's this question that keeps popping up about: is it like a cultural practice, or does it have a religious connotation to it, or is it something that people just do as to women? We have this conversation, but the root of the cause of what it's done is kind of like not present when the conversations are being had.
Absolutely, and thank you. That's a really good question. No, there is absolutely no holy book anywhere in the earth and anywhere in the world that says FGM is allowed to happen to women and girls. FGM, and there is absolutely is not a cultural practice. FGM is a child abuse. FGM is to control women and girls' bodies, especially when it comes to their sexualities. When I was cut to prove to my future husband that I never had sex with anybody else. That is nothing to do with my religion beliefs.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with my culture. My culture is not harmful. My religion is the faith that I believe in. So it's just an abuse. It's a child abuse, and people adopt it into cultural or religion beliefs. But there is absolutely no holy book anywhere in the world that says that FGM should be practiced.
Thank you for doing that. For putting clarity to that. I mean, we've had Layla Hussein, OBE, on the show as well, and she did, share with us that she was a survivor of FGM. But there was a question that I put to her that, can she recall, the experience before and after? And she did kind of have this vague experience of excitement where everybody was happy. It was like a Christmas somewhat in a way. Was this the same experience for you?
Yeah. I'm so glad you spoke about Layla. Layla's one of my best friends. And actually, if it wasn't for Layla, I wouldn't be doing the work I'm doing in the UK, because, we all have the psychological effect and medical effect of FGM.
Yeah.
So, we all need that one person. And I mean, what Layla said is true. FGM, you never forget. I remember everything about the day before I was cut, and I talked about it a lot of my interviews and what I did. And you don't forget, we had a party. That was the first time I was given a watch as a gift. I was 7 years old. My sister was 6 years old. We were very lucky because we didn't have to go outside or go into the countryside to be cut. We were actually cut in our own house. It was something I was really, really excited about. I remember the day before, we had our hair done, we had henna done, we got all the gifts. And in the next day, the day of the cutting, I remember waking up really, really early in the morning. And I went to my mom's room and I was like, Mom, is it time yet? Not knowing what was in store for me. And everything just went from there. But I remember the one thing I always remember, and I know that there are over 200 million women and girls who are survivors of FGM around the world. Yeah. And I just want everybody to know that over 200 million women and girls. And, but I remember the woman, the cutter coming in, and when she came in, because I was 7, I was older than my sister. The first thing she said to me was, I want you to be strong for your sister. And, as a 7-year-old, I didn't know what FGM is. I was just excited, right? But at that moment, I become a woman for my sister because they just told me I shouldn't scream, even though I don't know what I would be crying about, And I make sure I didn't cry or scream. But again, we were one of the lucky ones because we were cut at home and we had our families around.
I mean, Mabel, from your point of view, what are some of the myths people still believe about FGM?
Sorry, what was the question?
Some of the myths, people believe that, FGM, why they do FGM, some of the myths about people still believe about, believe in doing this FGM. What are the myths in there? Is there some, why do you think they still have this practice?
Yeah. I mean, I think Hoda could probably answer that question better than me, but from the non-practicing community's perspective, there are so many myths, like you brought out about the fact it's culture and religion. And what we see in this country is that the political correctness in our government goes so far as to not protect girls, because they say this is a cultural practice. If it was a cultural practice, as Layla says, to chop off a girl's hand, or if this was happening to white women, the whole world would be up in arms, you know? So I guess that's, from my perspective, the myth that is really important to dispel. But I think Hoda could talk more to the kind of, other myths.
No, Mabel, you just said it. It's the political correctness. It's people actually learning about the terminology, which is so important, because some people, even today, even though I work with schools and teachers, some people will come to say, oh, FMG? And I mean, you know, like, you need to learn before you open your mouth. So it's exactly, Mabel, like, it's all the things people came to us and really said, you know, what is FGM? A lot of people actually even think, I want people to watch The Cruel Cop, which is the first documentary when I ever spoke about FGM. And it was Layla and the director, Vicky, was amazing people. And this was like going back 2013, I think. You know, you see people didn't know what FGM was. The people think it was okay to take a girl and cut her clitoris and labia minora, and it was okay because it was cultural. Like, we really need to use our brain and as a human being to think that it's cultural acceptance when you can harm somebody. You know, you can't. And there's actually saying, I don't know who's the saying is from, it's the saying, cultural acceptance doesn't mean accepting the unacceptable, and FGM is unacceptable.
It is. It is. I mean, my question is, you know, you mentioned that you were caught at age 7 as well, which was all excitement. You're all happy because you didn't know any different. But at what point did you realize, you know what, you know, this is a form of abuse?
Oh, it took me a really long time. I think for me, it was when I got sick after I had FGM. And this is something I do talk about, but at the same time, I don't really talk about it a lot. But people who know me will know this. And I got really sick when I had FGM because my period wasn't coming out. I was sent to Italy with my dad. And once I arrived in the UK at the age of 21, and then at the age of 23, I met my husband. And, you know, I got married and I wasn't getting pregnant. But before that, I met Layla, and that's when I really kind of realized that FGM just doesn't happen to everybody. And I want people to realize, when you come from a practicing community, and especially you are in that country, you think every single woman around the world goes through FGM. That's what I thought. I thought white, black, and yellow, and green, every woman around the world had FGM. So imagine that now as an adult in my 19 years old, after I survived the war and the medical problems that I had, and I met Layla. But for me, the reason that really made me that who I am today and why I want to speak about me was that I can't have child. I cannot have my own children. I met my husband. My husband is not from Somalia. His parents are from the Caribbean. So that was another thing I have to introduce. I need to explain to him what FGM was. But for me, it was that FGM denied me my teenage life. FGM denied me to be a mother. FGM denied me to what does it feel like to be pregnant and to have your own child. And, you know, like I always say, tomorrow is another day. I survived the war. I survived FGM. Tomorrow is another day. But yeah, that is one of the reasons my mouth is, amazing. It will never stop.
I mean, I really, I should say, I'm proud of you because you've done great strides in bringing this into the public limelight, to people to pay attention to what FGM is and how damaging it can be to a woman's anatomy. You know, you mentioned there that when you met Layla, you assumed that, you know, everything, you know, that you went through was normal. I mean, there was some statistics that was released, I think, a couple of years ago, that 98% of Somalian women undergo FGM. You know, I think that is such a horrible statistics. But I mean, till today, would you say, how many women or children do you think still experience FGM? Is it still the same data, or have things changed, or is it still the same way?
Yeah. Again, great question. No, things have changed. And the data that we are using when it comes to the 98% of Somali women being cut, that is the old data that actually goes back to over 11 years ago from the World Health Organization. So we don't actually have the right data at the moment. But if we do look around the communities, and if I look around my own family and the people, it's me, my sister, and my niece are the last one to be cut in my family. So things are getting better. People are learning about FGM that is not, it's not cultural and it is harmful, especially, the oldest that who didn't understand the harm that we go through FGM. But the minute that you said, hey, you deny me to have my own child and you denied yourself to have a grandchild, they kind of really wake up. So it's everybody, every community have a different language that we can use to talk to them, to let them know what the harmful of practicing of FGM is. But things are changing. And my own community, yes, because I have about over 8 nieces, even including the ones back home in Somalia, and none of them was cut.
Okay.
And none of them will go through FGM. But I still want people to remember FGM still does happen today. And because there are some of my family that I know I don't have any control, and I know I'm trying that they're not going to go through the FGM, but they might go through it because I don't have the power to stop it. So we need to remember both. There is a good story, but there's still the bad story about it.
I mean, you mentioned that the data's a couple of some years back, which is quite right. Yes, it is correct, and things are improving. But if we come closer to home, like here in England, there's a data we came across. This was April 2016, March, where it identified 9,179 cases of female genital mutilation in England. For us, that's quite surprising that could still happen in this country. But my question is, where do you think we are as a country in regards to FGM?
Mabel, I'm going to let you answer that. Yeah. We're somewhere, but we're not there yet. So, Mabel, go ahead, dear.
Yeah, we're definitely somewhere. I think when you understand FGM being a symptom of a much larger forms of oppression that are at play, and also racism as well. As I said earlier, this is happening to white women. The data would be collected. We have incredibly flawed data in the UK. So the data we have is just based on women that have come forward.
Yeah.
And we still have people in the sector, FGM activists, saying that we have all the data, we know how many women are living, but we don't. It's the tip of the iceberg. If you think about the 200,000 women that are recorded to be living with FGM in the UK, it's just women that have been monitored by healthcare professionals. We can't even imagine the scale of it, of the scale of how many women are living in the country. And then also you look to other countries, like just going back to the data, to somewhere like India, which has a humongous Dawoodi Bohra community, and they've never done any data collection around FGM. So I think while we are, as Hoda said, moving in the right direction in many ways, there's still a lot that needs to be done. And also support for survivors. The services that are supporting survivors in the UK are constantly facing closure, lack of funding, because our government just does not prioritise the health needs of women, and specifically women in minority communities. So, yeah, there's a lot that needs to be done. Yeah.
Wow.
I really couldn't agree more, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to add a little bit more. I think our government, seriously, if our government steps up, there's a lot of money that is being spent by the government. But when it comes to, and the black and the brown girl, especially, is there is no money spent. And,
Yeah.
you know, the Vavengers would never existed if our government has actually stepped in and was doing what they need to do to support women and girls who are going through abusive relationship or violence against women and girls. So I really, really feel sad about the government. We are one of the richest country in the world, but we don't feel like that at all.
Yeah.
And there are girls who are silent, and we need to be the voice for them.
So what in your opinion needs to be done, by the government, because we just identify things that they haven't done. But what kind of, is it laws? Is it more funding? Is it more education within the society? What needs to be done?
I think Mabel can add more to this because she would know as well from your own, Mabel. I want you to talk about that, what you feel about it. But I think that the government has ignored the people who are doing the grassroots work. When you are actually working in grassroots, when you are working with the communities that is being affected, you really have a lot more information than anyone else. But the support needs to come from there, and the government are not supporting that. The government is rather give the money to the people at the top who will never come into the floor to see what's happening. And what we need is actually a support for the grassroots and the grassroots workers, people who are actually in the community. Mabel?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think as well, like, through the lens of intersectional feminism and understanding how different women's experiences are different, the government at times seems to just throw money at, organizations that their friends have made or their friends' children have made that are claiming to help Black and brown women, and they themselves are white women who have no contact within the communities. And I think one of the strengths of the Vavengers and the reason that we decided, Hoda and I, to form is because we both have such unique experiences, skills and networks that we can bring together in order for me to use my privilege as a white middle-class woman, for Hoda to use her expertise, her network, her experience. And we can bring these together to try and get some of the money into the places where it's actually going to do good, which is to those on the front line who have the experience, who have the community respect. Because I cannot tell you how many meetings Hoda and I have sat in, and they're like, how do we reach the communities? How do we reach, this, that, and the other? And you think it's actually quite simple. You don't just throw money at people that have never had an interest or, never even talked to an SDM survivor. You have to go to the survivors themselves and ask them, where do they see change needing to happen? Where do they think the most, effective programs could be run? And that's really like such a simple link that seems to not be happening. I can only assume, as Hoda said, because when it's Black and brown women's bodies, our UK government just does not seem to take care. Oh, yeah.
I cannot. I mean, I agree with you because it's something that is replicated across different aspects of society, where there seems to be some, answer to every problem is just throw some money to it, or what's the word for them? Have a committee or something, set up a panel, quickly to have a look at that. But the panel doesn't really have an effect on that. I mean, the what you highlighted there about speaking to the victims and engaging with your, yourself, for instance, for example, Hoda and yourself, the Vavengers, who are dealing directly with the individuals on it and know how to approach situations like this should be the solution. But hopefully things will change.
Absolutely. And things can change as well when we really think about it and we put our heart and soul to make sure things can change. We can change that.
Fantastic. Okay, on that note, we're just going to go for a short break and we'll be back on the other side. Trust me, you don't miss the other side of this as well. I'm inspired already as well. I want to know more about what FGM is. And I want to say thank you to everyone who's sending questions in. We'll be asking the questions before the end of the show. So stay locked on, stay locked in. It's your host, Double9, on Double9Radio. Welcome back to Double9Radio. It's 1909, 2201, 2021. We've been talking to the amazing ladies, Hoda and Mabel, sharing with us things around FGM and how serious it can be and what they're doing as well to help the victims out there who have been suffering in silence as well. I know Hoda is a survivor and she's doing amazing things to bring and shed light to the horrible things around FGM and how devastating it can be around the woman's anatomy. Ladies, I want to say a big thank you for coming on the show. I hope you're having a great time.
We are.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, just before we went on the break, we're talking about what the government should be doing, or the lack of participation of the government, not just throwing money into it. Hopefully, things do change, and statistics of people here in the UK, which is quite appalling, still having to suffer FGM, will be drastically reduced as well. Okay, so. What challenges, or the challenges, should I say, faced the Vavengers as an organization in doing your work, in trying to bring more attention to this horrible practice of FGM?
I think as an organization, we're very lucky because the team we have is so incredible and we love working with each other so much. So challenges are always something I think we take in our stride. But one thing we really are looking to do is really engaging men in the conversation. And that's definitely a challenge Hoda and I have spoken about, is how do we get the men who the women are being cut for, actually standing out against FGM and using their voices to say, this is not what we want, this is not what we believe should be happening to women. Hoda, any other thoughts?
And absolutely, a man have a big part of when it comes to FGM. And I remember working with the group a couple of years ago called
It doesn't matter.
They were the Kenyan Warriors. Sorry.
Yeah.
They were the Kenyan Cricket Warriors. But, they were, the Maasai Cricket Warriors. And they did an amazing work in Kenya. And I remember watching that video, the film that they did. And it was actually the young man who got together and said, we don't want our woman to be cut. We don't want to get married. We're never going to get married women who's been cut. And in that region, actually 50% of FGM reduction in that country. So we do have the power. Men actually do have the power because a lot of the women are being cut to prove to their future husband they are married, they are virgin. So
I agree with you because men need to be educated and they need to stand up with their voice. Because if a man, has a wife who's undergone the horrific process of FGM, and has one of the types you described earlier, which is maybe the matchstick size. And on the wedding night, they're trying to, engage in a lovemaking act. And that kills a woman, because what could happen there is a tear could happen and uncontrolled bleeding could occur.
Yeah. And the other thing as well, any medical person who's listening to this will understand the man gets third-degree tears as well for trying to push himself on the woman who's got type 3 FGM. And, a lot of the countries who actually practice FGM, one of the reasons man wouldn't, take the woman to the hospital is that if he doesn't open the woman himself, that he's not a man. So can you imagine the pressure of both sides? Can you imagine a man who don't even want to do that to his future wife, but he has to do it because that's the pressure that's from the community.
Wow. I commend both of you, Mabel and Hoda, for what you're doing, because it's a very important topic people need to pay attention to and know that it's a horrific practice and should be stopped. And maybe even made outlawed as well in some certain areas. But what keeps you going? What keeps you going to say, you know what, we want to keep on putting this message out there. We want the whole world to know FGM should be abolished. What keeps you going?
For me, and humanity. For me, I look at my nieces every day. I look at my nephews every day. And I look at myself because I can have a child. And why can I not have a child? Because of FGM, right? FGM denied me to be a mother. However, like I said, I always say tomorrow is another day. I always say that.
That is a fantastic slogan you just used there. But I'll let Mabel say her one before I actually go into that. But yes, carry on. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. No, Mabel, go ahead.
I mean, it goes back to what inspires me, which is just Hoda and the other women, not just in the campaign, but I think women in general, the levels of abuse that they endure, and yet they still smile and they still laugh and they still love, and it's just remarkable to me that, you know, so many women just walk with such strength, and yeah, that keeps me going, because I just think my experience of life has been comfortable, and I've been, you know, very lucky with the chance of my birth. So I feel that I have the responsibility to do what I can, just to support those who, you know, have endured things that I can't imagine, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's heartbreaking when you do think about the process and the horrific things that have happened to some women as well. Yeah, Hoda, your slogan, "Tomorrow is another day." I think that's just a beautiful slogan. You know, you know, how did you put that together? I think I've already adopted that. Sorry, I've adopted that now. Sorry, you know, tomorrow is another day.
Yeah, I think it's the first time I ever shared my story, and it goes back to the Cruel Cut when we did the documentary that Layla was doing for Channel 4.
Yeah.
I always thought that, because when I went through the war in Somalia, you know, when the civil war started and we went to the mountains, it was so beautiful, because as a child, you really enjoy it, because I could see like the water, the animals running around, but there's a civil war. There was people getting killed in the back. And for me, it was like, I'm going to wait for tomorrow. You know, when they take you in and they're like, no, you got to go to sleep. But where are you going to sleep? You're going to go to sleep underneath a tree anyway. And that's how I always thought about it. However, for me, when me and my husband went to have IVF, and you know, I got pregnant our first time and I miscarried. And when I miscarried, I actually nearly died, because I remember being in an intensive care unit for like 3 weeks, because from FGM, egg collections, IVF, everything, literally just my body couldn't take it. And I saw that I actually died. And I remember my husband being there, my mom, God bless her soul, now she's not here anymore, and my dad. And I thought, you know, tomorrow is another day. And it just came back. So the things that I remember as a child, running away from war without understanding, but just enjoying the mountains and the water and everything, and then being an adult and nearly dying from FGM complication and trying to get pregnant is, that is, so for me, every single day is tomorrow is another day.
Wow. You know, sorry, Hoda, I've adopted that. I think it's just an amazing, you know, fantastic slogan there. Tomorrow's another day, because it can bring you out from even the lowest of the lowest of your day. If you had you know, maybe not so good day, but you remember the slogan.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow's another day. You know, you look
everything comes from the heart. If you take a moment, no matter what you're going through in life, especially like now, and you stop for 1 second and you think about tomorrow, you're definitely gonna feel for today what you're going through.
Amazing. I'm so inspired today. You know, with this wonderful queens, wonderful royalty you have on the show today. Okay, let's talk about the Vavengers. You know, I love that name, the Vavengers. See, I've learned so much things today. I've got the Vavengers. I've got Tomorrow's Another Day. You know, who can be a Vavenger? Because I think you call the people that are part of the team Vavengers, if I'm correct.
Everyone's a Vavenger.
Everyone is a Vavenger.
Well, anyone that joins the campaign, you become a Vavenger in our eyes.
Okay, so how can anyone, you know, out there join the Avenger and want to help, you know, this wonderful cause of spreading the news of eradication of FGM?
Sure. So if you go to our website, all of the kind of normal stuff, you know, follow us on social media. You can actually subscribe to our newsletters, which will be sending updates on our project. We've got some fundraising ambitions coming up to expand and continue our community work with community ambassadors, who are women who we've identified as having direct access within the communities and expertise to really help women rehabilitate themselves mentally and physically So yeah, just follow us, go on our website if you can donate, but I know times are quite difficult right now. Join us.
Yes, as Tesco would say, every little helps.
Yes,
So,
and I've got something to add to that.
please, Hoda, go on.
Okay, I mean, Mabel said everything. Like, seriously, it is about humanity. It's about talking for each other. It's about helping each other regardless. And we did talk about a lot about it, FGM today. However, the Vavengers actually is, we are talking about violence against women and girls, and any child that should not be hurt in any way or form. And that is what we are, you know. But if you want, I really hope the world goes back to normal. In order for anybody to experience the Vavengers, you have to kind of attend one of our events. Mabel will be laughing at the background, but it's about poetry. It's about sophism. It's about, you know, songs that moves your soul. It's about poetry. People who are, you know, nobody have showcased their talent, and they actually that, you know, I am from the land of poetry. That's what Somalia is. So the Vavengers, we are here to support and help and speak for the community who do not have a voice. But we are here as well for us to learn, to have a fun, and to actually enjoy and showcase our talent as well. So please, if anybody's, you know, come along. Poetry is in our heart, by the way. So yeah,
poetry is the way. I mean, the lady that actually done a one together. You know, she read one fantastic poem on the inauguration. You know, of President Biden. I mean, she did amazing. So poetry is a fantastic way to share, you know, things around what you feel in the heart. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you follow them on The Vavengers on Instagram, or go to their website, thevavengers.co.uk, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, let's quickly go to some of the questions that have come in as well. So I'll just read some of the questions as well. If I don't ask your questions, possibly means that we've already addressed the question. Okay, I'll go to the first one. This is Chris from Lewisham says, how old are the girls that usually undergo FGM?
And FGM can happen to in any age. Normally, practicing community practice between age of 5 to 8. However, from a baby who is 40-year-old can be cut as well. And if a girl has not been cut and she's married to a community that is practicing, she can be cut as an adult. So any age can be performed in FGM, but normally it's 5 to 8.
Okay. I have another question from Gemma. Gemma says, what is the worldwide legal status of FGM?
I mean, it varies in many different countries. So it's illegal here in the UK, but then you go to Sierra Leone, where 86% of women are cut, and it's legal. You go to India, and there's no law about it at all. There's no recognition that it exists. So it's really varied across the globe, but I'd like to add to that as well that prosecution is not something we see as the way forward. It's definitely necessary to call it illegal, because it is. But what can happen is the child is traumatized twice because she's gone through FGM, and now she's had her mother taken away from her. Yeah.
Amazing stories there. Okay, another one, Rose from Hendon. Rose says, what sort of international frameworks or strategies have been established to address FGM?
Yeah, so there's a UN goal to end FGM by 2030, which makes us chuckle quite sadistically. Hoda, do you agree?
Yeah, because we were actually there when that was set by, you know, the UK and the different countries that set up. But no, there's really none in reality.
Yeah.
Mabel, what would you say?
I would say there's definitely, like, in the international development sphere, there's a desire to address and stop FGM, but it seems to be a lot of promises, and we're not seeing the steps that are being taken to meet these promises. which is very worrying within the sector, because you can make these big statements saying by 2030 FGM will no longer exist, and all of this stuff. Then you think you're not even collecting data in one of the world's largest countries. So how are you going to meet that goal? I don't know. I mean, it's hopeful.
It is hopeful. Okay, moving on to another question. This is Joanna from Grays. Says, what are the most common reasons used to justify this harmful practice?
The common practice used. Okay. One was religion. A lot of people believed that it was part of their religion. To actually have girls to be cut, and the other one was cultural. Now we do know that there's no holy book anywhere in the world that says FGM should be practiced on girls or women, and like I said, cultural practice doesn't mean practicing in FGM, which is unacceptable. So none of it.
Yeah. Okay, Stacey from London says, do you think FGM should be made a crime?
It is a crime.
It is a crime. Okay, it is a crime. Okay, Stacey, you heard it there. It is a crime. If you do know anyone as well, there are other ways you can reach out to let the authorities know. So on this, okay, this is the final question I'll take.
Can I just say that I just want everybody to remember that FGM is against the law and it's a child abuse. Like, imagine that a child from the age of a baby to the age of maybe 17, that is their legs being open and they being violated in their bodies, right, in their genitalia. So what culture or what religion or anywhere that in the world, who will allow that? Just think about that. Think about a child being violated and their legs being open and hold down.
Wow. I mean, such a horrific practice, really bad. Yeah. Really bad. Okay, final question. Zainab from Brighton says, does it affect your ability to orgasm?
I love that question because that's a question that's been asked a lot. I think when we talk about like sexual pleasure and orgasm, that is something that is actually between the man and a woman, because being a nurse and working in sexual health for a very long time, I realized there are women who never had FGM, but they never had an orgasm.
Yeah, true.
And my advice to women who had FGM is about understanding your body, knowing what works for your body, and having conversation with your partner. Because once you do that, actually things work out. And
well, I mean, you're quite right on that one.
I'm one of them, so it's about talking and really knowing about your body, basically. It's about the brain and talking as well.
I mean, you're quite right. I would agree on that answer there, because we did have a program to address or talk about female orgasm, and also because we had a sexologist who came on the show and did explain that some women have never actually reached orgasm because of some certain maybe genetical makeup or some certain things that needed treatment, so there are ways to actually go around that as well. Or some people didn't even know what an orgasm was. So I think you're quite right, having a conversation with your partner and finding out exactly how it works, or if you need some medical treatment to make it happen, that can happen as well. Wow.
Absolutely.
It's been
absolutely. But I will express this. I'm sorry to cut you again. I really will express this to talk to your partner and let them know what works for you.
Very important. She stressed that again. Make sure you talk to your partner to make sure they know what works for you, so you can reach that orgasmic level to feel what orgasm feels like as well. I mean, Hoda, Mabel, I don't want you to go, but the time is calling so fast. I want to say a big thank you for coming on the show. You know what? I'm gonna find a way to bring you guys back on the show to talk about maybe other things around this problem as well, and also shed more light to this. But I want to say a big thank you for taking time out this wonderful evening to come on the show. But before you go, do you have any?
Thank you.
You know what? Actually, I wanted to ask one more question. No, I'm not gonna just let you go like that. I want to know. Hold up. I want to know something. Tell us a fun fact about you. A fun fact that no one knows.
I didn't catch that. Was that for me or Mabel?
For you first. I want to let Mabel. She's not going to escape this one. She cannot tell us as well. But I want to hear from you first.
Okay. I don't know because all of my friends know this, but I love dancing.
She loves dancing. Look at that.
I really love. I'm literally talking about like shaking your, your behind.
That means you got to stay locked on until after the show because we're going to be giving you some great vibes to move to this evening as well. Okay. So Mabel, tell us, what is your fun fact? You can't say dancing. I'm not going to accept that.
You know, although I'm not going to say dancing, my fun fact, it relates to dancing because when I spent 6 years tap dancing as a child, which I'd never tell anyone, but yeah, I can tap dance, which is a fun fact.
That's a fantastic skill. Amazing. You must teach us one day. Maybe a virtual lesson. A virtual lesson would be
useless.
What? Sorry.
Now I'm gonna learn that because I'm 5'11", so I'm gonna be the giraffe who's learning.
5'11", amazing. That is such tall. I'm not going to tell you how tall I am because I might be giving it away. But 5'11", oh my gosh, that's amazing. Great to know. Anyway, ladies, I've had a great time on the show. My two royal queens who came on the show this evening to share with us things around FGM and the importance of campaigning against it as well, and also showing support for people who might have gone through it as well, to understand that it's a horrific thing to go through, but there's light at the end of the tunnel because tomorrow is another day. I want to say a big thank you to Hoda and Mabel, but do you have any words to say to our listeners out there before you say goodbye to us this evening?
Okay, I'm gonna go quickly first. I'll say quickly. Tomorrow is another day. I'm really sorry for the time that we are all living. But I just want everybody to think about what really female genital mutilation is. If tonight was your first time that you heard about it, I want you to learn a little bit more about it. Please go to our website. And FGM is not written in our forehead. Like if you see me down the street, you wouldn't know that I had it. So that means it could be the woman next door to you. It could be your neighbor. It could be the teacher. It could be the woman that you met when you drop your child in school. It could be your child's friend who might be at risk of FGM. So please, just educate yourself. And there are over 200 million women and girls around the world, and we do need your help and support. We need you to stand with us, and we want you to speak for us. And I thank you all for listening tonight.
Fantastic. Mabel?
I would just like to ask everybody listening to tell at least 2 people about FGM and what they've heard this evening, because I think it will cause a ripple effect. And as Hoda said, you telling someone, they might tell someone who might notice they're a teacher, that a girl is acting differently, and it could really save a life. It could really make a difference. So please use your voice. If every listener tells at least 2 people, I promise it will make a difference.
Yes, it would. It would. Wow. On that note, I want to say a big thank you again, ladies. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show this evening, and I'm sure sometime in the future we shall bring you back to discuss more on this matter. Hopefully by then we'll be talking about possibly the eradication of FGM, fingers crossed. Have a fantastic evening, and I wish you all the best in the future.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.